of the compromised relationships that Trooper Proctor had and hid. That's what we want the court to look at. He suggests, oh, well, there's just a couple of text messages. It's no big deal. It's a couple. The fact is, Your Honor, she really hit him. She really hit him with the car. Let's remember, she really hit him. And these text messages, they mean nothing. We're talking about the integrity of a sitting grand jury and the presentation before that grand jury. What Mr. Lally now has in his possession, but he didn't mention, now that he says, oh, well, she killed him. Let's just get on with it. She killed him. He's already tried and convicted her in his mind and tried to do it in this courtroom. It doesn't quite work that way. Now Mr. Lally has in his possession another thing from the feds that we didn't have access to. The federal investigators hired, independent of us, we had no idea, and independent of the Commonwealth, hired a professional reconstructionist, 3 PhDs, to look into exactly this issue. Did Karen Reed's car, did her SUV make contact with John O'Keefe? And their conclusion to a person was his injuries were inconsistent with the damage on the car. The damage on the car was inconsistent with having made contact with John O'Keefe's body. In other words, the car didn't hit him, and he wasn't hit by the car. Period, full stop. That's their independent expert, not ours, not somebody on our payroll like Mr. Whiffen or one of their experts or Trooper Guarino, who's an arm of the agency. This is an independent federal government witness or series of witnesses who say unequivocally that car did not hit John O'Keefe, and John O'Keefe was not hit by that car. But he didn't mention that. Second, he argued that the texts were not, these aren't texts between Julie Albert and Michael Proctor. These are texts between his family members. And then he mentions these 2 texts that had no content. What are the chances that Michael Proctor sent Julie Albert texts with no content? Your Honor, it's not that they didn't have content, it's that it couldn't be recovered, which sometimes happens. But we do have evidence that they were, in fact, in communication with each other as early as 2020. And with regard to the 2:27 a.m. search, it's not a 3-card Monty. It's not a shell game or whatever other fanciful thing Mr. Lally wants to suggest that it is, as he tap dances his way around this. He says that our expert, Rick Green, didn't look at the SQLite database. Yeah, Mr. Lally, reread his report. Yes, he did. He didn't look at the wall file. Yeah, Mr. Lally, reread his report. Yes, he in fact did. And he's the one that found the 2:27 a.m. search. And with regard to the Regional Computer Forensics Lab, that's the definition he couldn't remember, what they actually said was, because Mr. Lally got this wrong too, what they actually said was, yes, there was a 6:23 and a 6:24 search. And there was a 2:27 a.m. search as well. All 3 of those searches existed in the phone, Jennifer McCabe's phone, and it's not up for debate. That wasn't presented to the grand jury. The information that we've been talking about today wasn't presented to the grand jury. We're talking about the integrity of a proceeding. He doesn't get to convict my client by standing up here and pounding the table and saying, oh, she did it, she hit him. So let's just all get on with it and deny this motion. We're talking about the integrity of what is the foundation of Massachusetts' judicial system. And that integrity was compromised, that integrity was impaired. And it demands that justice be done. And that justice is in the hands of this court. We ask this court to do what the evidence dictates, do what the law dictates, and that is dismiss this indictment. That is the only way justice will be found in this case. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Karen Reed making some faces as the prosecutor was outlining some, and I want to underscore the word some, of the evidence against her. We're going to hear the rebuttal in just a moment, but I want to get some thoughts from my guest, Judge Kimberly Band, who's still in the studio with me. I want to welcome into the conversation a retired deputy inspector with the NYPD and the author of the book Once a Cop, Corey Pegues. Welcome to you, Corey. So, Judge, to you first, as we're watching the Commonwealth deliver its arguments, and we just got a little taste of their evidence here. Karen Reed seemed to not like it, huh? You were saying that if you were a judge, you would have been drawn right to the faces she was making. Talk to me.
I would have been, yeah, because you're observing the demeanor of the person accused of the crime, because that goes into your consideration in any decision that you're making. Her response and her...
In which Attorney Jackson indicated that pieces of taillight were planted after the fact, that the victim walked into the house, I think he was confronted, was likely brought down to the basement. I think the confrontation got physical and he was beaten to a point of unconsciousness, that he had defensive wounds, bruises on the back of his hands, largely of which is all not only not true, but directly contradictory to the vast amount of evidence that has been turned over in this case. Mr. Jackson then went on to continue that this was a cover-up, and indicating that John was murdered inside that house, his body was placed outside. This also continued into September. September 17th, the defendant, traveling with Attorney Jackson, Attorney Little, and a woman believed to be a television news producer to the victim's home, to Mr. O'Keefe's home, in direct violation of her conditions of release, where she has to stay away from, as well as other places of interest and sort of tour around the town of Canton. When balancing the amount of public and prejudicial statements made by the defendant and her counsel, the Commonwealth would suggest that then characterizing the district attorney's statement from over 6 months ago, threatening her right to a fair trial, is simply a position that's just untenable. Now, in context, as far as those particular statements, those particular actions go, as the court is well aware, there is a significant history between this defendant, Mr. Yannetti, Mr. Jackson, and the social media blogger, Mr. Kearney, who's now been indicted for intimidation of witnesses in this case. And with reference to that, there is a significant, despite public indications to the contrary, that indications from Mr. Kearney's phone, which was seized, is that there is a precipitous amount of phone communications, indications of communications between Mr. Kearney and Ms. Reed on a signal messaging app, an encrypted app, as well as, I believe, about 189 phone calls over a span of a few months. And that's just what's indicated or contained in the phone. There is also, going back to the spring of 23, direct communications between Mr. Kearney and Mr. Yannetti and Mr. Kearney and Mr. Jackson. They went out to lunch with Mr. Kearney following a court date in May of 2023. And this is a person who counsel in the memo seems to want to distance themselves from, based, I'm presuming, on subsequent indictments. But the truth is in the phone. The phone doesn't lie as far as those communications are concerned, as far as those communications between counsel and between the defendant in this particular case. So to say that this is a different case, again, I would suggest is a large minimization of what actually has transpired here. Lastly, what I'll say in reference to the federal grand jury, what is also clear from the federal grand jury is that this was an investigation which was initiated by the defendant and Mr. Yannetti. So to claim that he was in the dark or didn't know about this federal investigation, every bit of discovery that the federal government has from the state case was provided by Mr. Yannetti. Nothing was asked for from the Commonwealth, nothing was asked for from the district attorney's office, the state police. So again, what I was intimating before in reference to the motion to dismiss, I have no idea what they have seen or what they haven't seen, how much of the file, how much of the discovery or anything else. It's all sort of been provided and colored by Mr. Yannetti. And this goes back to November of 2022. So to then claim that you were sandbagged or didn't know about an investigation that you initiated over a year before until late in December of 2023 is, I think, disingenuous. Disingenuous would be about the nicest term that I can come up with for that. Thank you.
Right. Mr. Yannetti, a short rebuttal, I guess, or a short comment?
I would just add, Your Honor, that the focus of Mr. Lally's argument was on everything except for Mr. Morrissey's conduct. Just like it doesn't matter if Mr. Morrissey and his office are actually targets of an investigation, it's only what he knew and believed. Similarly, with regard to his conduct in keeping secret the existence of a federal investigation, it doesn't matter whether we knew about it or not. It's the fact that Morrissey knew, kept it secret for 7 months, and didn't reveal it to the defense until the media got access to those letters. And with that, I would rest.
Okay. Thank you. So I do have a question. Did you file the Rule 17 motions already, or do you expect to file them later today?
We will be filing them by the close of business today.
Okay, and they're pretty much outlined in your previous motion, what you needed to file, or are there additional ones in your motion?
I believe
with the
they're outlined.
continuance?
Yeah, they're outlined, Judge.
Okay, I asked because Mr. Roach told me that on the March 20th date, the council wants it to be via Zoom. I'd prefer it not be, because with Rule 17, as you know, the record holders come into court and object. So I don't want you all to be on the screen. And Mr. Yannetti, certainly your local counsel. Mr. Jackson, if you want to be on the screen, you can. But I need somebody here.
I understood, Your Honor. That's fine.
Okay?
That's fine.
It makes sense to me.
Yeah. If I may just...
Yes.
Can I appear in person and have my client join me?
No, she has to be here.
Okay. Thank you, Judge.
All right. Was there something else? Yes.
I would ask, may we approach just as the scheduling issues?
Okay. right, you had a question, Mr. Jackson?
I did, Your Honor, just about the logistics of the trial, meaning days in trial, half days, 5 days a week, 4 days a week. I wanted to get some sort of sense so we can begin planning.
Okay,
what
so
the
we're going to go full days, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, half days, Tuesday, Thursday,
Are the half days afternoon or half days morning?
mornings.
Okay.
Okay, anything else right now?
Can I have one moment? No, Your Honor, thank you.
All right, anything from the Commonwealth?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. McDermott?
Judge, I just wanted to put on the record that I think I provided to everyone copies of that letter from Google. I just wanted to make sure, just put that on the record that I gave you copies of that. Thank you.
We received copies.
All right, great. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you.
Don't yell at me. Don't yell at me. Sensitive enough. Yes. Oh, yeah.
Oh, good, you can pull it.
So somebody heard me say, don't yell at me.
Thank you very much, I really appreciate it. Great. That's good.
All right, here we go. So here, could you read this? In theory, I need to make copies of this for at least 2 people. Okay. Yeah.
Good work, Ted, you did a shutout there. Everybody still goes.
Okay, all right, sounds good.
I'm gonna get your XLR. Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
A body falls from the night sky. To understand this tragic death, police must follow a winding trail of clues. They struggle to learn whether it was merely an accident or something far more sinister. Each menacing clue heightens the mystery as police seek to uncover the identity of a man.
Kind of looking out, or at least looking at the outside, or the inside door of that same closet. And on the wall, tell us what this appeared to be and the reason for the photograph.
gun because I believe it was a matter of asphyxia that caused her death, based on the testimony of Jordan, the 6-year-old child.
I'm going to object to argument, Judge. Sustained.
Now, Jose has been charged with various counts, as they were just read to you. The state's main witness is Katrina Mendoza. She pled guilty to 1 count of serious bodily injury, but not that she did anything, that she failed by omission.
Object to argument. Sustained.
Not that she did anything but omission.
Again, I'm going to object to argument. It's the same statement. Sustained.
She was tried, there were many charges, but ultimately pled to omission. Now, judge records and publishes everything that goes on in this courtroom. Normally, we don't have to.
Object to
Sustained.
relevant.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to ask that you step outside the courtroom briefly, and I will bring it back. You're not allowed to discuss anything that you've heard so far. Does everyone understand?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Is it fair to say your analysis involved the event at the car with Trooper North, correct?
Objection leading.
Rephrase, please. What other what other evidence was relevant in your analysis?
Based on the request from the attorney, my analysis was very, very focused. It was really unlike any other kind of expert report that I've written. The attorney had very
All right.
Yes, Judge. Next witness is David Hendry.
You guys switch that? Easily confused, so. What's that?
Thank you.
All rise for the jury.
You may be seated. Who's next witness, prosecutor?
David Hendry.
Last name?
Hendry.
Hendrick. Could you raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm the testimony about to give is the truth, so help you God?
Yes, Your Honor, I do.
All right, please step up and have a seat. And then would you state your name for the record and say your first and last name?
David Hendrick, D-A-V-I-D-H-E-N-D-R-I-C-K.
Go ahead, Mr. Cruz.
Thank you. Sir, how are you employed? As a part-time employee with the Oakland County Sheriff's Office.
Okay, and how long have you been part-time?
2 days.
All right. And prior to that part-time employment, did you work full-time with the Oakland County Sheriff's Office?
I did.
Okay, and how long did you spend as a full-time employee?
34 years.
And at some point, did you retire from full-time employment?
I did.
When was that?
Last May.
Okay, so you didn't stay retired for long?
No.
All right. In your 34 years working with the Sheriff's Office, could you tell us, please, what sort of assignments you had?
My last assignment that I had prior to retiring was the sergeant of the fugitive apprehension team. Prior to that, I worked about 10 and a half years in our special investigations unit. Prior to that, I worked in our auto theft unit. All those were as sergeants.
Okay.
Prior to getting promoted to sergeant, I worked in our auto theft unit as a deputy and at one of the substations as a substation detective for a few years.
Okay, the Special Investigative Unit, that's what Detective Lieutenant Tim Willis heads up right now, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
I want to talk to you specifically about your time with the Fugitive Apprehension Team. First of all, tell us what exactly that is.
It's a team consists of a sergeant and 7 detectives who are responsible for locating people with felony warrants or who are wanted for serious crimes that they have been alleged to have committed. Those requests that come in are either from our substations at the sheriff's office or other agencies throughout the county that request our assistance.
Okay, and forgive me if I've asked this, but how long did you spend with the Fugitive Apprehension Team?
About 6.5 years.
Okay, and that was as the sergeant?
Yes, sir.
So you would be the individual leading the team?
That's correct.
All right. And how many members of the Fugitive Apprehension Team were there?
I had 7 plus myself.
Okay. Is that the role that you had in November and December of 2021?
It is.
Is it fair to say that all of the individuals on the Fugitive Apprehension Team work as a group?
Yes.
All right. I want to direct your attention to the days after the Oxford High School shooting of November the 30th, 2021. First of all, do you remember that day?
I do.
Okay. Were you working that day and that week?
Not that specific day. I was out of town, but the rest of the week, yes.
Okay. At some point, were you requested to locate James and Jennifer Crumbley?
We were.
And tell us how that happened, please.
To any press, it's not something that should come in evidence.
Your Honor, what's relevant about talking about this
Excuse me.
because it's a motivation for why.
Excuse me, counsel. Make your opening statements. Opening statements are what you believe the evidence will show. So if you don't believe the evidence will show it, then it should not be before this jury.
There was a press conference right after the Mercedes death, and at that press conference, Joe Galley, who used to be one of the reporters for Channel 12, asked a witness, family member.
I'm gonna object to hearsay.
Right, that'll be overruled.
Asked a family member about what had happened, and the family member said, we've all tried many times, reports to CPS and the police to try to save Mercedes. Nothing was done. That's relevant because Joe next asked.
This is objection argumentative.
Okay.
Sustained.
So anyway, motivations came out for that factor. We're the judges in a case, despite what I say, what you see is what counts. I am asking for a not guilty. At this point, Jose Angel is still presumed innocent. Jose Angel is not an angel. He's a hookup guy. I'm not an angel either. I'm not a hookup girl, but.
I'm gonna object to argumentative.
Thank you.
All right, state, call your first witness.
Judge, at this time, the state would invoke the rule.
All right, the rule will be invoked. Call your first witness.
Yes, Your Honor, can we make sure defense doesn't have any witnesses in the courtroom? I believe somebody who has been subpoenaed is in the courtroom.
All right, the rule has been invoked. Are there any witnesses in the courtroom for either the state or the defense?
I subpoenaed Channel 12, Your Honor. I think they're in the courtroom.
Are there any witnesses in the courtroom? Who
As
did
I
you
said,
subpoena from Channel 12?
The news editor, the news director.
All right, is the news director from Channel 12 in the courtroom? No, they are not.
It was a dubious taken to bring the news report.
They are not here.
Well,
The editor is not here.
Somebody from Channel 12 is somewhere.
They are not the editor. Who did you subpoena the editor or did you subpoena the person who's here?
And I don't know who's here, Your Honor. And Miss Mitchell's the one that said there was somebody in the courtroom. The only person I subpoenaed was the head of the newsroom at Channel 12.
All right. Is the head of Channel 12 present in the courtroom? They are not. Call your first witness.
The state calls Gustavo Cervantes.
If you'll take a seat here, please. would you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right, you can lower your hand. Make sure you keep your voice up so that the members of the jury can hear and the court reporter can hear.
Okay.
All right, if you'll state your name for the record, please.
Gustavo Cervantes.
State.
All right. Good morning, Gustavo.
Hi.
Where are you presently employed?
I'm on the trauma team at University Hospital.
And how long have you been there?
I've been there since May.
Okay. And what is your role?
I'm a staff nurse in the trauma team.
So, what kind of training do you need to become a staff nurse at a trauma center?
Usually good long experience in the emergency room in general.
Experience in the emergency room?
Yes.
So, do you have a degree or any kind of certification?
I'm a registered nurse.
Okay. And I know it sounds pretty fundamental, but what kind of schooling do you have to be a registered nurse?
I have an associate's. It's a 2-year degree.
From what institution?
Galen College of Nursing.
And when did you get that?
2015.
Okay. So, when you got your degree at Galen, did you start working right away?
Well, I was already working in the emergency room at Downtown Baptist since 2008. I was an LVN at the time, but I was in the ER from 2008 to 2015, and then just finished my degree and kept working in the emergency room.
So what's the difference between an RN and an LVN?
Amount of responsibility, the kind of medications you can give, the training, the schooling teaches you more about this disease process and how to manage patients.
Okay. And so you were an LVN before you were an RN, right?
Correct.
What trainings did you have to be an LVN?
It was a 14-month school. I got it through the Army.
Okay. And how long were you in the Army?
8.5 active and 6 in the reserves.
From what years?
1994 to 2002 active duty, 2002 to 2008 reserves.
And did you serve as an LVN in the Army?
In the reserves. And active duty, I was infantry.
Okay. So you're infantry, and then you got your LVN certification in the Army.
In the reserves.
And in the reserves.
Yeah.
And you served in that capacity.
Correct.
Okay. So then in, let's see, 2008, that's when you left the military?
Correct.
And you went to work for the ER in Downtown Baptist?
Correct.
How is working in an ER different than working in another part of the hospital?
The pace, you don't know what to expect. You're getting everybody fresh after injury or when the disease is going, so you have to figure everything out. Other parts of the floor, you know what's going on with the patient. You have a general idea. All the testing's done. With us, it's more finding out a process, and a lot of times just acute care. So you're getting them fresh. You might be trying to save their life. You might be just trying to find out what's wrong with them in general.
Okay. And is it safe to say that, you said the words, you never know what you're going to get. Is it safe to say that the individuals who are working in the ER have to have a more broad knowledge?
Jack of all trades.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you first worked in the ER in 2008 at Downtown Baptist, and then in 2015 you got your associates and became an RN,
Correct.
registered nurse. Where did you go in 2015?
2015, I stayed there at Downtown Baptist, and then I went and did liaison work for a rehab hospital for about a year, and then went back to the ER where I wanted to be.
Okay. And the liaison work, was that still with Downtown Baptist?
No, that was a different company. Warm Springs Rehab.
What was it?
Warm Springs Rehab.
Warm Springs Rehab. Okay. And how long were you doing that?
I did it for about a year, but it wasn't.
And then you went back to an ER?
Correct. Northeast Baptist.
Okay, you went to Northeast Baptist. And so that would have been what, 2016, 2017?
Around that, yes.
Okay. And you worked in the ER there?
Correct.
Were you just were you a staff nurse?
Staff nurse, yes.
Okay. long did you stay at Northeast Baptist?
I stayed there for 2 years, and then I went to work as a post-op nurse for a small surgical hospital, Heidner Ambulatory Surgical Hospital,
Okay.
for about 2 years.
Okay. All right. And then, after the post-op nurse, where did you work?
That's when COVID came around,
Okay.
so I went to work as a contract nurse, going to the most needed hospitals in Houston and here, just doing COVID nursing.
Okay, and is that similar to an ER environment?
It was still in the ER.
Yeah.
It was still the ER.
Did you eventually stop being a contract nurse?
Once everything settled down and they started opening back up, I actually finished my COVID nursing. That's how I got to Southwest General.
Okay.
And they asked me to stay on as a charge nurse there once it was over.
Okay. So, do you remember what year you went to Southwest General?
That would have been 2021, I believe.
2021?
Yeah, I think I'm not.
And at
sure.
some point, did Southwest General change names or?
They did. They changed names to Texas Vista Medical Center.
Okay, now you said you became a charge nurse there.
Correct.
How is that different than a staff nurse?
You're responsible for the entire ER for your shift, as far as assignments, being an in-between with the nurses and doctors, making sure the nurses are doing their job, basically.
Head nurse?
Correct.
Okay. And were you in the ER at Southwest General?
Yes.
Okay, Texas Vista?
Yes.
So at this point, you know, we're up to, you started Southwest General in 2021. Do you remember when it turned to Texas Vista?
Sometime in 22, I don't remember exactly.
Okay, so, you're there in 2022, and when did it shut down, right?
Correct.
When did it shut down?
May of last year.
Okay. Were you there until it
I was there on the very last day. Yes.
Okay. Now, that is, let's see if I can do my math. Reserves. So you've been working in an ER type of environment for about 20 years. Is that safe to say?
16.
16?
2008.
Okay. 16 years. Have you seen children come into the ER?
Many times, yes.
Many times?
Many times.
Can you estimate like more than 100?
Oh, I'm sure.
Okay. Have you seen people who came in who maybe had exercised too hard and hurt themselves?
Right.
Have you seen people that come in that had been beaten?
Yes.
In February of 2022, actually, I'm gonna pause for a second. Yeah. Okay, remember may I, Coach?
Yes.
I'm gonna show you what I have marked for identification purposes as State's Exhibit number 1. Can you please do an X where Southwest General Texas Vista was located?
I go down here. I'm trying to, honestly, it's further down.
Sir, I know this.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just trying to.
I think he's thinking out loud.
Yeah, I'm trying to find
So
exactly.
if y'all are thinking out loud, the court reporter puts that on the record.
Okay.
And if you're gonna think out loud, then you need to speak up so she can hear.
I apologize. Oh, yes. It was further towards the south.
Okay.
It was generally. It was sorry. I apologize. It was generally. Golly, this map isn't as detailed.
Okay, so the map doesn't show it?
No.
Okay, let me see if I can get a better map for you.
Sorry.
7th of 2022, were you working as the charge nurse at Texas Vista Hospital on that day?
Yes, I was.
Do you recall a patient by the name of Mercedes Lozoya?
Yes.
You just testified that you have probably seen over 100 children that come in and numerous people who have been beaten or overworked. So what is it about Mercedes Lozoya that you remember so well?
All of it, just the way she was presented to us, and just
Okay.
the condition.
Okay. You said how she was presented to you. First of all, do you recall how old Mercedes Lozoya was?
5 years old.
Who brought her to the hospital?
My initial understanding was mom ran in with her, yelling for help, and that's when my triage nurse grabbed her from mom and brought her down to the main ER where we were at.
And mom was screaming for help, you said?
That's what I was told by the triage nurse.
Could you hear her?
Once they came out of the triage area near the front entrance, I could hear them down the hallway.
Okay, and what did you hear?
Save my baby. Some other things I could really, at that point, I just focused on the child.
Okay. And so who brought you Mercedes?
My triage nurse grabbed her from mom, I guess, at the front, and came running down the hallway, also yelling that she wasn't breathing.
Okay. And did you at any time take over the care?
I did.
Mercedes?
I did. I took her from the triage nurse and carried her into the room that was right behind us, put her on the bed, and that's when we started working.
Okay. So, Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to show you what's been labeled State's Exhibit number 2.
Okay.
What is that?
This is the chart for Mercedes. It's her medical record.
Okay. And who authored this?
That would be me.
Okay. So you authored this report?
Correct.
Okay. Now, what was the purpose of making these records?
To record the care of the patient, what was given, what was done, to maintain the record. Just
Okay.
record maintenance.
And is this something you do for all patients?
Every
who come in?
patient, every patient has a medical record.
Okay.
Correct.
And is it important for medical history to make a
Right.
record of everything?
Right. Everything needs to be recorded for the patient's health, for future visits, and also for legal reasons, of course, to make sure that everything that we do for the patient is recorded and it's correct and it's...
Okay. So when we're looking at this, what kind of information did you record here?
You always have the time of arrival, her triage level, the condition they came in, include the initial assessment, which is their mental status, their consciousness, weight, medical history, allergies, all the things.
What is medical history?
Any previous medical conditions, surgeries that the patient may have had.
Okay, and obviously Mercedes came in injured and needing help. So who did you get that history from? Who would that history have come from?
In a normal situation, it would have been the parent.
Okay. What is the Glasgow coma scale?
That's a scale we use to determine the patient's their consciousness. Basically, it grades the vision, the eye response, verbal response, and motor response of the patient. It goes from 3 to 15, 15 being completely alert and awake, normal, and 3 is completely unresponsive.
Okay. Is that part of the triage process?
Correct.
Okay. What was Mercedes?
She was a 3,
And again, that meant she was.
completely unresponsive.
She was completely unresponsive.
Correct.
Okay. What else is done in triage?
Triage is basically gathering the complaint, why they're there, and allergies, history, weight, and we take into account why they're there to determine what their acuity level is.
Okay. And so who was, were you doing the triage?
Yeah, so normally it's done at the front by the triage nurse, who assigns them a acuity level depending on how serious their condition is, and it tells us how fast we need to get them back or whether they can wait. In a situation like that, she was a level 1, meaning the life is at risk. They bring them straight back, and it's all done we're basically doing it all at the same time. The triage, well, not initially, no, we're not typing in everything in. We're working on the patient, and after the fact, we complete the appropriate charting.
Okay. So, as part of your care of Mercedes, did you have to sorry, she was unresponsive.
Correct.
So what treatment did you provide for Mercedes?
We took her into the room immediately. First thing is checking for ABCs, airway, breathing, circulation. Notice there was no chest rise. Assumed she wasn't breathing. Checked her pulses, and there were about 2 of us checking pulses. Usually, when there's a patient in that condition, there was no pulse. So we started chest compressions immediately, and then in the process of trying to get circulatory access, IV access.
So you checked her levels, right? And you didn't feel pulse.
Correct.
Did you do any kind of medical intervention?
Right. The CPR. We were trying to establish airway. She had mashed bananas in her mouth, which we had to take out. I digitally removed it so we could actually get access to her airway and start giving her ventilations with a BVM.
Okay.
Try to establish IV access, which was nearly impossible. We ended up attempting.
I'm sorry, IV access you said was nearly impossible?
Yeah, there was the veins weren't giving us any return.
Okay.
So
Can you explain that to the jury? What does it mean that the veins weren't giving a return?
So with a IV catheter, it has a chamber in it that gives, when you hit the vein, it gives you a blood return, so you know you're in the vein and you can advance. My nurses were putting it in, and there was no blood return. When there's lack of circulation, that can happen. There's nothing coming back, because it's the pressure from the vein that pushes the blood in.
Let me stop you there. You said a lack of circulation can cause that.
Right.
Was there anything else about Mercedes that led you to believe that her blood wasn't circulating?
In the initial moment when you're working on the patient, you're not noticing every condition of the patient. You're concentrating on trying to get them breathing and get the pulse back. However, noticed her skin was already ashen.
Object to the narrative, Your Honor.
Sustained. You said her skin was ashy. Why is that relevant to you in your assessment?
Pallor and ashiness is a sign of poor blood perfusion. So when there's a pulse is lost, the patient's skin color changes because of the lack of blood perfusion.
Okay. How does the appearance of blood change?
Depending on the time that they've been pulseless, the blood will darken because of the lack of oxygen.
Okay, so the blood will darken. Did you?
Ask your next question.
Okay, I'm so sorry, Judge. How did Mercedes' blood appear that day?
So after they were failing to get proper IV access, we actually got access with an IO, which is an intraosseous. So it's a needle we push into the bone of the below the knee, which is similar. Not the best, but it's similar to start trying to get fluids, medications. We didn't get any real blood return there. I finally got IV access on the side of her neck, and the blood return was dark. It was very dark.
Very dark. And what did that tell you?
It's unoxygenated blood.
It's not oxygenated blood.
Correct.
And for us lay people, what does that mean?
So bright red blood is going to be in the arteries. That's going to be your oxygenated blood coming from the heart, going to the body. When it goes back in the veins, whenever you got a cut on your finger or anything, it's a little darker than oxygenated blood, but it's still red. The darker it is, the less oxygen is in it.
Okay. So does that have something to do with her heart function?
Right. If there hadn't been any circulation going, that means that none of the blood is passing through the lungs to pick up oxygen. So the body is using up whatever oxygen is there, and it's depleting it, so the blood is going to get darker.
Okay. You said you had worked at Northeast Baptist Hospital. How far, you worked at Northeast Baptist,
Correct.
right? How far away is that from where Texas East was?
At the time I lived about probably 10 minutes or 7-8 minutes a little northeast of even Northeast Baptist, and it would take me about anywhere from 25 to 30 minutes to get to work.
Okay. Were there other hospitals in the area?
You have Northeast Methodist, you have Northeast Baptist. Trying to think. On the way there, there's also several urgent cares, and they might not be open, but you have the standalone emergency rooms all the way through.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to show you what has been marked for identification purposes as State's Exhibit number 3. What is this?
It's Mercedes Lozoya.
It's Mercedes. Is it a photo?
Correct.
Okay. Is this the little girl that you saw that day?
Correct.
Was that a fair and accurate depiction?
Yes.
Your Honor, I would offer into evidence State's Exhibit number 3.
No objection, Your Honor. Right, State's Exhibit 3 is admitted without objection.
Okay. At this time, I would also offer State's Exhibit number 2, which was his report.
1 and 2.
Just
Number 2. No objection, Your Honor. State's Exhibit number 2 is admitted without objection.
Yeah, yes. So at this time, your report is in evidence. Can you please read the narrative that you wrote?
On 2/8/22 at 112, the child was brought in by mother at 1904. I took the child from the mother's hands, and that was my mistake. My memory was of the situation. It didn't happen so fast. I actually took it from my triage nurse's hands.
Okay.
And I placed her in the room 12 directly behind them where they had come in. Child was pulseless. CPR begun immediately. Several rounds of high-quality CPR and BVM-assisted ventilations were given. Patient never regained...
Excuse me, if you can slow down.
I apologize. Okay. I placed her in room 12 directly behind them. Child was pulseless. CPR begun immediately. Several rounds of high-quality CPR and BVM-assisted ventilations were given. Patient never regained ROSC, which is return of spontaneous circulation when we get a pulse back. And the code was called, meaning time of death was called. MD Dr. Newton called time of death at 19:18, 7:18. Child was noticed to have generalized bruising over body, posteriorly and anteriorly, along with scratches, missing areas of hair on head, wounds to her feet, and toenails missing on 2 toes of the left foot. Child had food still in her mouth on arrival. Per mom's statement, she had been feeding the child when she passed out and hit her head on a lamp. Mom stated she propped up child and continued trying to feed her. SAPD was called during CPR due to appearance of the patient's body. CPS also involved, investigations being conducted by SAPD and CPS, postmortem completed, ME en route for child's body.
Now, on the next page, the ED triage assessment. Can you please read what the ED triage note says?
Mother yelling for help in ER, child taken straight into room, no pulse, CPR started, child had chunks of food in mouth, and generalized bruising was noticed on patient's body. Bruising in different stages of healing. Noticed several wounds to child's feet with toenails missing from 2 toes on left foot.
There's a note that says that bruising was in various stages of healing.
Correct.
What does that indicate?
That the bruises were caused at different days, weeks, maybe. I mean.
Did you observe, if you remember, did you observe any injuries that looked like they had just occurred?
There were newer bruises on her. I don't recall exactly where, but there were some that were darker than others.
Are you able to determine timeline of bruises?
Not exact timeline, but
Objected this round.
Overruled. You can answer the question, but just answer the question that's asked of you.
correct. You cannot exactly determine when, but you can differentiate between newer and older bruises.
Okay. And newer could be within the last week.
Day, a week, yeah.
Yeah. Do you know what rhabdomyolysis is?
Yes, that's, I do.
What is that?
It's when muscle in the body starts to break down for, there can be several reasons. It breaks down and it can cause myoglobin, which is what muscles are made of. It can go to the kidneys and cause kidney failure, and it can increase your lactic acid in your blood, making your blood more acidic. It can cause nausea, vomiting, lethargy, malaise, and up to death.
Okay. So it can cause fatigue?
Correct.
It can cause nausea?
Correct.
And is malaise just another way to say fatigue?
Correct.
Okay. And is that something that will immediately lead to a coma, or is it something that takes time?
It's progressive. If it goes untreated, it's progressive.
I mean, it takes a few days or longer?
It can, depending on the damage to the muscle.
Okay.
How much is there?
And you said Mercedes had bruises all over her body.
Correct.
Is trauma like that something that can cause rhabdomyolysis in your
Correct.
Objection, Your Honor, to the qualification of the witness to make the statement of what causes it.
All right, you want to lay the foundation?
What is trauma? When you say trauma can cause it, what do you mean?
Trauma is any injury to the body from an outside force.
Okay. And had you seen, is rhabdomyolysis something that you have been seen diagnosed while you're in the ER?
Many times, and I even had it mildly myself at one point.
Okay. And so you've seen cases where you knew that trauma.
Objection to the leading, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Have you seen cases of rhabdomyolysis where trauma was a contributing factor?
Many times.
What else can be a factor for rhabdomyolysis?
I mean, what else can cause it?
Yes.
Extreme amounts of exercise without proper hydration, dehydration, infection, metabolic issues, somebody with defective liver.
And if rhabdomyolysis is left untreated, what organs of the body does it hurt?
Objection, Your Honor. Cause for speculation.
That'll be overruled. You can answer the
It's
question.
not established that he has the expertise to answer that, Your Honor.
That'll be overruled. You can answer the question.
I'm sorry, what was the question again?
What happens to the body if rhabdomyolysis is not treated?
So the release of the breakdown of muscle, the myoglobin, can affect the kidneys. That's what they call it, tea-colored urine. Your urine gets very dark, decrease in urine production. It can cause lactic acid release into the blood, making the blood more acidic. And then all the symptoms we already mentioned. And eventually it can cause the heart to be unable to contract properly. Reduces there. The high level of acidity can cause multiple organ failure.
Would you say that someone that has rhabdomyolysis left untreated may have a substantial risk of death?
Objection, Your Honor. Down to witness's expertise.
That'll be overruled.
Correct.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay, Your Honor, I'm going to try this again. May I approach the witness?
Yes.
Okay, hopefully this is better. I've labeled this State's Exhibit number 4. This is a new map.
Okay.
Does this show where Southwest General would be?
Yes, it's going to be down to the south.
Okay, can you mark that with an X for me?
Approximately. Sorry. It's going to be approximately here in this area.
Okay. And I guess go ahead and circle it for me. Okay. Now, what other hospitals did you say were in the?
Overruled.
What other hospitals did you say were in the area from Northeast Baptist to Southwest General?
You have Northeast Baptist a little further.
And this map indicates Northeast Baptist.
Correct.
Is that a correct location?
Correct.
Okay.
A little further east, you have Northeast Methodist.
Can you mark maybe with?
It's in generally near the Live Oak area around there.
Okay, you got a circle. Can you put maybe a line through it? And that's Northeast Methodist.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
If you keep going further down, SAMC, the military medical hospital, is there.
Okay.
That's another one that they would not refuse a patient.
Okay.
Actually, near Northeast, there's a standalone emergency room.
Okay.
I actually did part-time there.
Can you put a circle there?
Around
Okay.
there. And I'm trying to think. You pass. You're also passing by the medical center,
Okay.
which has countless hospitals.
Can you maybe just do a square around where the medical center would be?
Yeah. Sorry.
Okay. What about on the south side? Is there anything else? Any other medical center or hospitals you could think of on the south side?
South Side, Mission Trail
Okay.
Hospital, which is here by Brook City Base.
Okay.
And there's also in the vicinity, there's two Baptist standalone hospitals, mini
Okay.
hospitals as well.
Okay.
I don't remember the approximation of those.
That's okay. And it was your testimony that there are urgent care centers.
Urgent at that time of the night, maybe not, but definitely there's San Antonio's opened up a ton of small standalone ERs.
Okay. And you brought up a good point. What time of night was it?
I believe it was 7. Yes. Yeah, it was 7 p.m.
Okay. And this map, is this a true and accurate depiction of San Antonio?
Correct.
No objection,
Your Honor, Your Honor, I would offer State's Exhibit number 4.
no objection, Your Honor.
State's Exhibit 4 is admitted.
Your Honor, may I publish?
Yes.
Okay, so just to review, so this circle with an X is Southwest General,
Approximately, yeah.
or Texas Vista, right? This
Mhm.
general area. And then we have, like you say, Fort Sam, you have the medical center over here, you have Northeast Baptist, you have Northeast Methodist, or no, this was Northeast Methodist. Which one was this?
It was a standalone emergency room.
Okay, it was just a standalone ER.
Mhm.
So, is it a fair assessment to say that there are more hospitals in the northeast area than there are on the south side?
Correct.
And based on the condition of this child, how urgent did she need medical care?
She needed to go to the nearest facility.
Based on your observations of the child, do you have an opinion whether she was had trauma on her body?
Yes, most definitely.
Okay. How much?
Literally from head to toe, there was trauma, front and back.
Did you check for her mouth, or her facial area as part of your exam?
Right. Initially to remove the food that was still in her mouth, and then after the fact, during assessing the body.
Did you see anything in her mouth area, if you remember?
In her mouth area, I don't remember exactly, but there was bruising in the general area.
Was there bruising on her face?
I believe so.
Okay. Did you notice anything about her hair?
She had an area of her head that was missing hair. It looked like it was missing.
Okay. Did you ever speak to the mother, Katrina Mendoza?
I did not.
Okay. Did you stay with Mercedes?
I did.
Okay. What happened after Mercedes was declared deceased?
Afterwards, we had called SAPD and CPS, who were on scene, and the investigator for CPS was there, and he needed to take pictures for investigation. So it was my patient, and as a charge nurse, I was in there, and I was helping turn the body. I was turning the body so they could take the appropriate pictures. And then again for SAPD's investigator.
Did she have bruises? You said you turned her over. Did she have bruises on her backside?
All the way down, yes.
All the way down. Were they patchy, like one bruise and then another one? How continuous was the bruising?
They were all pretty approximated, different conditions of healing.
What would you refer to it as widespread?
Correct.
It covered her.
Right.
I'll pass the witness.
Defense. Good morning, sir. My name is Teresa Connolly.
Good morning.
Thank you, sir. Did you know Mercedes had asthma? Was there anything about that in the admitting concept?
No,
You didn't know anything about it?
did not.
You were first alerted to this, as I understand, by the sound of the mother yelling, "Save my baby."
The mother was yelling, and my triage nurse was yelling.
She was yelling too, the nurse?
Right, that she had a child that wasn't breathing.
I'm sorry, what?
That she had a child that wasn't breathing, to let us know what she was bringing.
That was her first response, that the child was not breathing, is that correct?
Yes, along those lines, yes.
When you touched the child, was she breathing?
Initially when I grabbed her, I wasn't assessing. I was taking her to the room so we could lay her down and start working and make that assessment.
In your report, you stated that she was cold.
Right.
What did that indicate to you?
That initially it just indicates that she's cold, but there was no way for me to know why until we started the assessment.
Now, you said that, as I recall, correct me if I'm wrong, that you tried to take blood or put an IV in the child. Is that correct?
Correct.
And as I understand it, you said that the blood that you took out was very dark.
Correct.
And where were you able to take that blood from? What part of Mercedes' body?
We finally got access on the right side of her neck.
Right side of the neck? There was some comment in here about you had to go to her shin.
Right, that was another attempt to gain access. That's intraosseous access. It's a drill we put into the bone.
Actually, a drill. And this was for the IV, wasn't it?
Right, especially with children, it's something we use commonly.
Was she given any anesthesia before you drilled into her leg?
No,
Why not?
because it's the type of emergency situation it is, it's not required.
Because she wasn't breathing, right?
It's because of we were doing CPR.
But she wasn't breathing.
Correct.
If she had been alive, would you have given her an anesthesia before you put a drill on her leg?
Not necessarily.
Object to relevance.
Overruled.
Not necessarily. There are situations, especially when there's respiratory issues, that by protocol we can start an intraosseous on a child.
What does that mean? I'm sorry.
Intraosseous into the bone, the drill into the bone. That because of the situation and why they're coming in, we can start it, and we don't generally use anesthesia when we start them. But the majority of the time when we start them, the patient is not awake.
Thank you. My next notes say different stages of healing. Is that in regard to all the bruises?
Correct.
If any idea, can you estimate at all how old the oldest bruise might have been?
There's no way to tell exactly when or when it could have happened, but you can differentiate between older and newer by their color.
Were there black and blue traces, or yellow traces, or red? Remember any
All
of
of
that?
all of the above.
All of the above. Now, you said that you examined her various eyes, nose, whatnot. Did you notice anything particular about her eyes? Did you open them and take a look?
Unresponsive. They were, I'm sorry, not unresponsive. Yes, unresponsive to light.
Did they have any red specks in them?
Not that I recall. I don't
Look
recall.
for that?
If it's one of those things that's obvious when you look, but
I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
it's one of those things that can, if you see, you see it. When we open the eyes, we're looking for the responsiveness of the pupil.
You weren't looking to see if the eye itself manifested anything, just whether it was.
Not necessarily, not in that moment, no.
Thank you. Now, there was spirit in her mouth, and you said, if I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you had to pull it out to open her airwaves, is that right?
Correct.
Did that have any difference for an asthmatic to have blocked airways?
If she was having an asthma attack, definitely would make it harder for them to try to take in air.
But you have no information that she was having an asthma attack, do you?
Right.
And the problem with an asthma attack is that the blood doesn't get oxygen, is that correct?
That can happen, correct. The airways close down and they can't take air in.
Did you wonder why a mother was feeding a 5-year-old child?
Of course, we try to, it's something that was stated and thought about, but I didn't think about that deeply. It was other things we were doing.
Did anybody ask her why she was feeding a 5-year-old child?
Speculation.
Overruled.
That I recall, no, not that I heard or that I recall.
You mentioned with rhabdomyolysis that you actually had it yourself.
A mild form case of
You
it.
lived.
Right.
Good.
I appreciate that.
When you had CPS in the room, do you recall any of the conversation?
With the CPS.
Object, closer hearsay.
Overruled. Just answer the question, not what anybody said.
I did.
Okay. Did they, as a result of your conversation with CPS, did you understand that they were familiar with this case?
Object to hearsay.
They didn't ask for hearsay.
All right, so everyone, stop talking over each other. Everyone make your legal objection and I'll make a ruling. And your objection is hearsay?
It calls for hearsay.
All right, and what is your response, counsel?
All right, I didn't ask for hearsay. I said as a result of the conversation, what did he observe?
You may answer that question.
Can you be more specific? What did I observe as far?
Any indication that they had been familiar with the case?
After the fact, after.
Object to.
All right, so counsel, re-ask your question.
As a result of your conversation with CPS, do you recall that they indicated a familiarity with Mercedes' case?
Not initially.
But at some point?
Correct.
Thank you. Anybody else? No further questions. Ask the witness.
One final question, if you can answer it. How quickly, once the heart stops circulating, how quickly does it take for the blood to become dark like that? What kind of time frame?
It's not easy to say, but it can take a little bit of time because there's still going to be oxygen in the blood for.
Your Honor, I'm going to object. Cause for speculation
Sustained.
on his part.
Is there a minimum time? Not necessarily in how far it can possibly go, but a minimum. Is it going to be more than 5 minutes?
More than 5 minutes, correct. most likely.
No further questions.
Mr. Cervantes, the cause of death that you have on your records there indicates cardiac arrest. Is that correct?
That's not, we're not determining cause of death. We're determining her state when she comes in.
I'm sorry.
Her condition when she comes in.
Cardiac arrest is on there. What is the title of the place where cardiac arrest is written on that report?
What page are we on?
I don't know. You have it.
Unable to respond reason, is that what we're talking about? So there's a part here where during the triage where it's asking questions, different kinds of questions, general questions we ask all the patients, and when we say that they're unable to respond, we have to ask why. We have to state why. And
The answer was?
cardiac arrest.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Cervantes. No other questions, Your Honor. Yes, witness.
Just one clarification question. If someone came in with a head trauma, say it's a dural hematoma, and then they stopped having a pulse, but before you knew it was a hematoma, is it safe that you would probably put cardiac arrest?
Correct.
Okay. So it just means the heart's not pumping.
It means the heart stopped.
Okay. It's not a cause of death.
Right.
No further questions.
But it could be.
What's that?
Cardiac arrest could
Speculation
be.
or.
That objection will be overruled. You can remain seated when you ask your question. Ask your question, and if you can answer it, answer it.
Cardiac arrest can be and determine, and there could be but you have to, it's the ME's job to determine what caused the cardiac arrest.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. No more questions, Your Honor.
All right, is this witness excused or subject for recall?
He's excused from the state, Your Honor.
Anybody? No? He's excused from the defense, Your Honor.
All right, the rule has been invoked. What that means is that you're not allowed to discuss your testimony with anyone. You're not allowed to view anything about this case. Do you understand?
Correct, yes.
All right, you may step down. State, call your next witness.
State calls Ryan Cahill.
If you'll leave the exhibits, please.
No, my problem.
No problem.
This is Ryan.
All right, if you'll take a seat here, please. Can you raise your right hand for me? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right, you can lower your hand, have a seat. Make sure you keep your voice up so members of the jury and the court reporter can hear.
Yes, ma'am.
You'll state your name for the record.
Ryan Cahill.
State.
Thank you, Judge. Mr. Cahill, did you used to be called something different than Mr. Cahill?
Yes, I was formerly Officer Cahill with the San Antonio Police Department.
Thank you. And you no longer work for San Antonio Police Department, is that correct?
Correct.
When did you stop working for San Antonio Police Department?
About the middle of 2022.
Okay. Like summer?
Yes.
Okay. And when did you start your career with San Antonio Police Department?
About the summer of 2017.
Okay. So, that's, if my math is correct and better than Brittany's, it was, what, 6 years?
A little under 5 years, I believe.
Okay, so we're both better. Tell the jury, well, I'm sorry, prior to working with San Antonio Police Department, did you have any previous law enforcement experience?
Yes, I was with the U.S. Army for about 8 years as a military police K-9 officer.
Okay. And so after the military, that's when you joined SAPD. Is that correct?
Correct, yes. I was released early from the military to be able to join SAPD.
Okay. And can you tell the jury about your career with SAPD?
Yes, I was with SAP for a little under 5 years. I worked on South Patrol as a patrol officer. About a year before I left, I was certified as a field training officer, and I performed as a field training officer for that final year of my service there.
Okay, I'm going to back you up a little bit. You mentioned South Patrol. What is South Patrol mean?
So basically, we patrol the southern part of San Antonio. You know, kind of goes all the way from the west to pretty much the east side, but that whole southern section, basically below the median line of San Antonio.
Okay, and what shift did you typically work?
It was T shift.
What does that mean?
We went in at 5 p.m. We would get out at about 3 in the morning. It was they called it like a power shift that would overlap the busiest times of the day to assist the other shifts with kind of the more active times of the day.
And you talked about being a field training officer. What duties do you have as a field training officer?
So as an FTO, my primary duty is to assist the probationary officers with their training and their transitions to becoming a full-time independent officer on their own. What I do is I primarily review their reports, watch them while they're at the calls. If there's anything that they need assistance with or they're struggling with, that's when I'll kind of step in. Kind of make sure that nothing goes anywhere it shouldn't go. If there's something that they haven't experienced before, they're not struggling with it, and kind of assist them through the calls with whatever who were there to help needs and any questions that they have.
So basically you're training new officers?
Correct.
Okay, so I want to kind of talk about that a little bit more. Just in general, what training does an officer go through when becoming a full-fledged officer with San Antonio Police Department?
So after you go through the academy, which is several months long, then you're going to have a 3-month period where you'll spend in the FTO program as a probationary officer. You're rotated through 3 FTOs. You'll spend 1 month with each FTO. You'll be at different substations around the city, so that way you kind of get exposure to all different environments and different types of calls and things like that. At the end of your 3-month period, you'll spend 2 weeks in evaluations with 2 other officers that you have no experience with, who are also FTOs, and they'll evaluate you over those 2 weeks based off of a rating scale, and then you have to pass that. If you pass that, you'll be certified as a full officer to be able to work independently on your own. If you don't pass it, you'll go back into remedial training. You'll basically do another month or whatever is needed with additional FTOs until you're able to pass your certification.
And so specifically focusing on the FTO portion that you talked about, where they are with 3 different field training officers, are there different phases and levels to that training that they go through?
Yes, there is. There's 3 phases, and kind of the point of the 3 phases is to give them more responsibility as time goes on, being that, you know, they just got out of the academy, they have a lot of the textbook experience, but they don't have a lot of the interactive real-world experience, because it's hard to train that in the academy. So we're kind of, it's almost a handoff, if you will, as far as giving them more and more responsibility as they go.
And are you, or were you, a certified peace officer?
Yes.
Okay, so are you currently still, or?
Yes, currently for this year, my certification will lapse if I don't complete the required TCOL courses by the end of the year.
Okay, and just why did you leave San Antonio Police Department?
Your Honor, object to relevance.
How is this relevant?
I mean, Judge, I want to make sure he left on good terms.
All right, the objection is sustained.
Were you working as a San Antonio police officer on February 7th of 2022?
Yes, I was.
At that point in time, were you training anyone?
Yes, I was.
Who were you training?
Officer Lisario.
What phase of her training was she in?
I believe she was in 3rd phase.
And a little bit more than what we've already talked about, what does 3rd phase fully mean?
So the third phase, what I typically do and most FTOs do in third phase is we're mostly giving the probationary officer the full independence at the calls, and we're kind of just a secondary kind of, we fill more of a cover officer role unless there's just something that we need to step in for or something they haven't encountered in their previous phases. But pretty much at that phase, they're mostly operating on their own.
On February 7th, were you dispatched to a case involving a Mercedes LaSoya?
Yes, it was.
Where were you dispatched to?
At the time, it's called Texas Vista Hospital.
Okay. Why do you say at the time?
It changed its name several times, and then now it's currently, as far as I know, no longer in operation.
Why were you dispatched to Texas Vista?
We were dispatched for a DOA of a child.
What does DOA mean?
Basically means that the individual was brought in unresponsive or was found unresponsive at some point and is basically believed to be or has been pronounced deceased.
Okay. And in fact, what does DOA stand for?
Dead on arrival.
And so, tell me, when you have a field training officer, how does that look? Do you ride together? Do you ride separately?
Yes, we ride together, and as was said, I kind of perform as a cover officer, kind of doing what she needs and just kind of he or she, and then kind of helping them out with whatever they may need or stepping in if needed. But we're pretty much always attached because it is my responsibility as the FTO to make sure that nothing does happen that shouldn't happen and make sure that I'm watching over that officer as well.
Okay, so is it fair to say that everything that you're saying you did that day, you did with Officer Losario?
Correct.
What happened when you arrived to Texas Vista?
Immediately upon arrival, we got a briefing from the staff there who told us that there was...
I'm going to stop you real quick. You're not allowed to talk about what people told you.
Okay.
So you got a briefing, and without saying what they told you, what did you do next?
Okay. I got a briefing. From that, we went to the room where Mercedes' mother was located. We made contact with her, and then...
I'm going to stop you real quick. Okay. You said Mercedes' mother. Do you remember her name?
Yes, Katrina.
Do you remember her last name?
Katrina Mendoza.
Okay. And so, while talking to her, just what was her demeanor?
So her demeanor was, she was, in my opinion, in my experience, with talking to a lot of individuals and a lot of interviews, she was attempting to appear very upset, but I do not feel, based off my experience, that she was legitimately upset. That it appeared that she was, by my experience, it appeared that she was more forcing the emotions rather than truly feeling the emotions.
How long did you talk to Katrina Mendoza?
There were several times that we kind of went in and out of the room with different things. If I had to put a time total, maybe a total time about an hour or so, broken up over different time periods.
Okay. So this initial time that you're talking to her, who was all in the room?
At the time, it was just me, Officer Losario, and Katrina. And there, at one point in the beginning, the doctor that pronounced the deceased was in the room, but that was just at the beginning.
Okay. And in course of your investigation, did you learn that Katrina has any other children?
Yes, I did.
And how many other children does she have?
At the time, I was aware of one.
Okay. Do you know that other child's name?
Jordan?
Okay. Did this cause you any concerns?
Yes, definitely.
And what were your concerns?
My concerns was, at that time, I had observed Mercedes' body at that point and saw the extent of the injuries and the condition of her. And based off that, it immediately caused a high concern for me that if there's any other children involved, that we needed to immediately get them into custody, because if they were in any potential danger to what it appeared Mercedes had gone through, then we needed to try and get them to safety as soon as possible.
Can I approach Judge?
Yes.
Okay, officer, I'm still gonna call you officer. Officer Cahill, I'm showing you what's been admitted as State's Exhibit 3. Is this the condition you saw Mercedes in that night?
Yes, it is.
Can you take a minute and just, in your own words, describe what you saw Mercedes looking like?
Yes. When I went in and saw Mercedes, she, at the time, was covered with an apron. When I pulled back the apron, the injuries that she had sustained were clearly not something that, under any circumstances, could have ever been perceived as accidental. It was extensive injuries that were over multiple lengthy periods of time. She was covered from head to toe, her whole body in bruises, significant bruising. A large majority of her hair had been removed from her head. She had what appeared to be burn marks on her feet. I was informed that she had a soft spot in her skull, and it was basically there was no possibility that this wasn't a long. Yes.
You already expressed that you had concerns for Jordan's well-being. Were your concerns due to the extreme amount of injuries you saw on Mercedes?
Yes.
Due to that concern, what did you do?
At that time, we went and I talked with Katrina and was able to gain the information that her, at the time, she said boyfriend was in custody of the other child. And due to the extensive injuries that I observed on Mercedes and the possibility of, we didn't know who at that time had caused these injuries, I wanted to try and get both her boyfriend and the child to the hospital so we can make contact with them and take custody of the child. And then Katrina called.
Okay. I'm gonna pause you.
Sorry.
Okay. All right. So you said boyfriend. Did you learn who her boyfriend was at the time?
Yes.
Who was that?
Jose Ruiz.
Did you have an opportunity at some point in the night to make contact with Jose Ruiz?
Yes, I did.
Do you see him here in the courtroom today?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Can you identify him by an article of his clothing?
Yes, he's wearing a blue jacket.
Okay, let the record reflect he has identified the defendant. Okay. I believe you mentioned asking Katrina about Jordan.
Yes.
Correct. Without saying what she says, what do you observe her to do?
She used her phone and made a phone call.
On this phone call, what was her demeanor?
At first, she was trying to coordinate with the other individual on the end of the phone, and then she became extremely agitated and irate, began yelling and screaming.
And did that continue for the remainder of the phone call?
Yes, it did, and after.
Okay, and I'm sorry, you said and after?
Yes.
In your work as a San Antonio police officer, do you wear a body camera?
Yes, I do.
Okay, and we've talked about Officer Lacerio. Was she also wearing a body-worn camera?
Yes, she was.
Are those in use while you are at a call?
Yes.
Are they constantly recording?
Yes, it's required by our policy that the moment we get the call or we're going to make contact with any individual of the public, that the body-worn cam is activated and it remains activated until we complete that interaction.
How do body-worn cameras get logged?
When we activate them, we deactivate them. At the end of the day, we put the body-worn cameras into their charging docks. They're automatically uploaded into the servers and then they're stored in the servers.
How are they connected to a case?
I'm sorry, say that again?
How are they connected to a case?
So they're usually connected to the case by time frame. It's basically the system tries to say this officer, which is your body cam, is basically attached to you as the officer. This officer was on these calls during this time, and that camera would be attached to the calls that you were on during that time.
Okay. Is it fair to say that you don't have to attach it, the system does it automatically?
Yes.
May I approach, Judge?
Yes.
Okay. Officer Cahill, I'm showing you what I've marked as States Exhibits 5 and 6. Do you recognize those?
Yes, I do.
How do you recognize them?
Through these are my initials and the date that I wrote on them.
Okay. Have you had opportunity to watch both of these prior to coming to court today?
Yes, I have.
And are they portions of your body-worn camera from February 7th, 2022?
Yes.
Are they fair and accurate depictions of the events that occurred that day?
Yes, they are.
And I'm sorry, Officer Cahill, may I approach again, Judge?
Yes.
Okay. Are both of these from your body-worn camera?
One of them is from mine, and then the other one is from Lacerio's when we're standing together.
Okay, and I'm sorry, you already said that, so I'm going to clarify. States Exhibit 5, is that, whose body camera is that from?
That is from Officer Lacerio's.
Okay, and you already testified you've watched this in its entirety before coming to court today.
Yes, I have.
Were you present for the entirety of this video?
Yes.
May we approach, Judge?
This is still arrest. Out. Man, we have double checks and weapons. So we're not. This is still an act. We got them. They gotta get. Pull up. Listen. Everybody do this. I'm not asking you.
Sir, I'm going to stop right there. What was the purpose in looking in that specific area?
So SRT will clear out, make sure there's no weapons, or if there is weapons, we'd like it to be known before like detectives or patrol would come in.
So SRT's responsibility would be, in this situation, would be to find and make secure the fugitives, but not to search the location?
Correct.
Okay.
I can't do it all day. Like, can you switch? All these are wrong. Hey, bro. No, never mind. Hey, Woody. Yeah. I got it. Yeah, so put it on the back. Just step on the back, push it down. Put your hands together like you're praying. Hands back together like you're praying. Double eyebrows. Not in your pocket? No, I can't see it. That's You sure, Jordan?
The search of the male fugitive's person, that's for weapons. This is where any found?
Not that I can recall now.
someone coming out. Everybody else? Yeah. Crumbley else? Come on, sir. All right, you good? Good?
I'm just pause it for a second. At 1:42 a.m., 22 seconds. This is the hallway right outside of the suite where they were found in that location?
Yes, sir.
Okay, does this give an idea of the number of law enforcement personnel outside of that suite at that time?
Yes, sir.
And appreciate it. Nice work. Yes, sir, guys.
Thank you. I have nothing further, Judge.
Ross?
Yes, Your Honor. Good afternoon.
Yeah.
Your role with Detroit Special Response Team, one of the things that you do is fugitive apprehension.
Yes, ma'am.
Fugitive apprehension is typically when there's a person who is not coming in to address allegations or charges against them, correct?
I would say that's correct.
Usually, fugitive apprehension is you get involved when it, and correct me if I'm wrong,
Okay.
if it becomes clear that that person is not going to come in on their own.
I'm just going to object to the form of the question, Judge. He's testified that he gets notified of when to report to base. He's given an assignment, and he does the assignment.
Yeah, are you the one who decides that?
No.
In fact, you receive information from your supervisors,
Yes, ma'am.
and you have no knowledge of the truth to the information that you receive. Truth or inaccuracy, either way.
Man, I believe my supervisor's not to lie to me, so I'm listening to their order.
So you get a phone call, and you go to the station.
Yes, ma'am.
You testified that there were, I think you said, tons of officers at 1111 Bellevue on December, well, it would have been December 4th of 2021.
Yes, sir. Yep. December 4th. Yes, ma'am.
You knew that there was a shooting at Oxford High School on November 30th of 2021?
Yes, ma'am.
You had seen media coverage about it?
Yes, ma'am.
You were aware of it?
I believe so, yes.
Were you also aware that James and Jennifer Crumbley had been charged in connection with the shooting on November 30th?
I can't say I remember or not.
Okay. You don't specifically recall seeing that they were charged?
Is that a no?
No.
Thank you, Your Honor. Exhibit 306 was a photo of the exterior of 1111 Bellevue. Your testimony was that you remembered it as a warehouse.
Yes, ma'am.
You learned that it was actually a building that had multiple businesses in it, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
You knew who you were looking for in 1111 Bellevue that night?
Yes, ma'am.
You had been given photographs?
I believe so.
Descriptions?
I believe so.
You knew that they were the parents of the Oxford High School shooter?
Yes, ma'am.
And you received that information from your supervisors or from the other officers when you arrived on scene?
Man, I would say it's safe to say our supervisors.
Because the reason I asked that is because you testified that when you pulled up onto Bellevue, you didn't know what you were there for. So I wanted to clarify that before you entered 1111 Bellevue, you were given information about why you were entering.
I knew I was going for fugitive apprehension.
And who it
then-
was?
No, at the time I made entry, we found out pretty much who it was, I would say.
Okay. Entry into the building?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. You testified that you received information while you were inside of Bellevue that the individuals may be on the second floor and may not have come down. Do you remember that testimony?
Yes, ma'am.
That was not true, correct?
Yes. Yes.
You learned that that was not true.
Yes.
The video from your body-worn camera, which starts at 1:34 a.m. and 20 seconds on the timestamp, or it looks like 18 seconds on the timestamp, it's quiet when your video starts, correct?
Correct.
You can hear
Yes,
like a little bit of your movement with your equipment and stuff, but otherwise, you don't hear yelling, you don't hear any other sounds, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
You would agree with that?
Yes, ma'am.
You recall when you entered the unit, obviously it was dark.
That's it. Yeah, didn't leave it.
You don't recall seeing police lights in the windows of the room, if you recall?
Yeah, ma'am, I wasn't paying attention there. But
You were looking at the people that were on the bed, right?
yes.
In the middle of the room.
Yes, ma'am.
In fact, when you entered the unit, when you and your team entered the unit, James and Jennifer Crumbley were laying on a mattress in the middle of the room, which we saw.
Yes.
James was laying on his side, if you recall? If you recall.
I mean, it appears to be in the video.
They weren't covered with boxes or anything like that, correct?
No.
There was I think Jennifer Crumbley had a blanket on, otherwise James was completely uncovered.
It's
He slowly rolled over as you all were giving him commands, correct?
It looks like that. I think I was paying more attention to Jennifer.
Okay.
So.
You don't recall him doing anything that would cause you all to be concerned. He didn't jump up, he didn't start to run, he didn't become combative. None of that happened from what you recall.
I would say he did none of that, but as far as our team goes, we're trying to take every caution as it is. We treat every person the same. We come up high, and then their reaction is how we go from.
And safe to say, when SRT gets involved, it's typically, and you talked about high risk, dangerous, so you're going into these scenarios already at a heightened level of concern or security or awareness. Is that fair?
Yes, sir.
You don't walk into the situation without all of your uniform on and your equipment and everything else thinking, oh, this is no big deal.
No, we don't do that.
Because when your unit gets involved, typically it gets involved in situations that are serious.
Correct.
And you guys are given information about situations that are serious.
Correct.
You guys meaning your unit.
Yes, ma'am.
You can hear yelling, if you recall. You hear yelling on the video, and if you know, you later learn that was James Crumbley.
Okay.
He wasn't yelling at officers.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
You recall that?
Yeah, he didn't seem to be yelling at us.
Okay. He was just making sounds. It sounded almost, and if you know, if you agree, it sounded almost that he was in pain.
Safe to say.
And again, the mattress was in the middle of the room. James and Jennifer Crumbley were on it.
Yes, ma'am.
They weren't hiding in a corner.
No.
They weren't hiding behind any of the raised countertops that were in there.
Nope.
They weren't hiding behind any of the paintings that were in there. They weren't covering themselves with blankets.
No, ma'am.
If you recall, your unit received information that James and Jennifer Crumbley may have a weapon with them.
Yeah, so, ma'am, I don't recall. We just treat every person that we're going after as if they're possibly is a weapon.
Now, you all searched that unit and you did not find any weapons.
No, ma'am.
And you searched both James and Jennifer Crumbley and there was nothing found on them either.
Somebody did. I didn't. Somebody did.
Somebody searched them.
Correct.
Okay. And we talked about this a little bit at the beginning. It's not your job to verify whether or not the information that you receive is accurate, correct?
Correct.
Your job is to get the call, right?
Yes, ma'am.
You go to the base.
Correct.
You get your equipment on. You load into whatever vehicle you're taking, and you go to the scene that you've been called to.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, when the investigations are being done by your own department, you tend to have a little more information at the beginning. Is that fair?
Me, myself?
Your unit.
So, yes, ma'am. I would say normally during times that we get called out, it starts high and then it comes to us. If that makes sense.
High in the rankings.
Yes.
So it would go to your supervisor or their supervisor and it gets filtered down to you.
Yes, ma'am.
And if you recall, at around 6 minutes and 40 seconds on the video, I don't remember what the timestamp was, you can hear James Crumbley say we were leaving at 7 in the morning. Do you remember hearing that in the video?
I'm going to check into that, Judge. There's been any testimony of that, nor has there been any indication that happened.
It's on the video, Your Honor.
But then I think the video should speak for itself for the jury to make the
And
determination.
ladies and gentlemen, you can rely on what you see in the evidence and on the video, all right?
Do you recall hearing that on the video?
Man, we can run it back. But,
Okay.
No.
I can put it there. It's at 6:24.
This is 305, correct?
Yes, Your Honor. I don't know if that audio is working. Oh, I don't know, can you hear it from this?
Yeah, so this is the second time I've been watching the video, so yeah, it's good.
Again, this witness can't interpret what he thinks somebody else may have heard. His camera, obviously, he's 3 people away from where James Crumbley's in the video. The video would speak for itself.
It does, she asked if he heard it.
And he asked me to play the video back, Your Honor.
Now, he said, if you want to play it back, go ahead. I mean,
Well, she
in
didn't.
response to a question of, did you hear that?
Okay, so did you hear it?
Yes.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Redirect.
Sir, did you learn that they had active arrest warrants at the time you arrived on scene?
I don't recall.
In order for a fugitive arrest to occur, you need active arrest warrants?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And why would you be quiet right before you entered suite 130?
So that's a form of a tactic. So we're trying to do, if you can see we use keys, correct?
Yes.
You can have 2 options. We could ram the door, we could throw a flashbang in and cause diversionary, or you can come in and be quiet. It would be a shock effect that way. So our supervisors made the decision to use the keys, unlock it, and use it as a surprise effect.
So everyone being quiet in the hallway, that was intentional as a tactic before you entered this particular suite?
Yes.
Now the using the RAM, that wasn't a quiet tactic, was it?
No.
Okay, so the noise level that would have been depicted before those doors were breached right around this suite here would have been much different?
Yes.
Thank you, nothing further.
Briefly, Your Honor. You have no knowledge of your own whether or not James Crumbley heard anything that was going on outside of that suite, correct?
No.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, you can step down and you're excused.
Thank you.
All right, can I have you return at 1:30 after lunch? Don't discuss the case with anyone, don't research anything, don't look at any media, don't go on Facebook. You know the drill, right? Okay, we'll see you back at 1:30.
All rise for the jury.
All right, you may be seated. Who's the next witness? Who's the next witness?
When we approach the definition, Judge?
I think just
Thank you, Judge.
Could everyone remain seated while the defendant leaves court? Thanks.
avoiding criminal liability, a man who is wholly unfit for office, and a man who, at the very least, ought to think twice before accusing others of cognitive decline. Thank you for being here today, Mr. Herr. Thank you for illuminating a stark choice for this country in the months to come. I look forward to your testimony, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. The chair now recognizes the chairman of the Oversight Committee, Mr. Comer, for an opening statement.
Thank you. In August 2022, President Biden questioned in a 60 Minutes interview how anyone can be that irresponsible when asked about classified documents in the possession of former President Trump. But when President Biden said this, he knew that he had stashed classified materials in several unsecured locations for years, dating back to his time as vice president and even as a U.S. senator. President Biden, the White House, and his personal attorneys have not been honest with the American people about his willful retention of classified material and continue to hide information from Congress. President Biden's attorneys claim to have first discovered classified material at Penn Biden Center on November 2nd, 2022. However, President Biden and his lawyers kept it secret from the American people before the midterm elections. CBS News broke the story in January 2023, leaving Americans to wonder if the White House had any intention of ever disclosing that President Biden hoarded classified documents for years. One of my first actions after becoming chairman of the House Oversight Committee was to launch an investigation into President Biden's mishandling of classified documents. This investigation started before Special Counsel Herr was named, and what we found is alarming. Information obtained through multiple transcribed interviews conducted by the Oversight Committee contradict the White
bed every fucking night. So I heard the fucking bathroom and that's the TV down there. I went down that. I know what's the guy's talking. Oh. Anyway. I heard something hit the floor, I guess. It sounded like a shot. I didn't think it was a shot. And started watching TV, drank a beer, looked at my list, trying to think, you know, I don't know, I guess I lost track of time, but I come upstairs.
So you were going upstairs to do what?
Check on it. I haven't heard anything.
Was the bathroom door open or shut?
She never shuts anything.
Does she normally keep the bath in that room, not the one off the master?
Yes. She's kind of made that hers.
Okay. And she takes one every night before bed. And is she sleeping in the master bedroom? Are you guys sharing a bed right now?
Yeah. That's the thing.
What time does she usually go to bed?
It varies since we've been trying to work this out. It's probably been later. I guess she goes around 9 or 10. 1:30 or something. Anyway, like, yeah, she didn't have good color on her. Holy shit. Check her pulse. There's blood there coming out of her nose or mouth or something, or her head. Where do you check her pulse now? Both sides of her neck. I checked at both sides. Both sides of the crown. She's cold. And I wasn't completely sure. And, fucking 380 in the morning. Yeah, but she would have asked for that. That was on Sunday. You know, I wish I would have mentioned that I was carrying it. Yeah, Sunday I gave it to her. I don't know what she did with it.
Did she ever make any statements had you concerned about her well-being?
Yeah, well, every day. Well, it's just, she's so emotional. She tells you when she's still around. I agree with her. She'd go the way. This age, last age, we were pretty distant, you know. I knew something was up, but last one, yeah, it turned out to be, you know, pretty distant. Do you suspect she was cheating on you then? I asked her that. I asked her that to give me closure, because, you know, she said she had. Man, her behavior, I don't, it just doesn't add up. Okay.
What does it add up?
She's behaving the same way she was before. And before we made go, that was pretty good. And she said she didn't want a divorce, or she doesn't want a divorce. It changed about every other day.
Did she ever talk about who divorced last time?
No.
She didn't.
I left. She asked for me back. I went back in.
How long did you been
Oh, I started dating, first date was June 19th, 1993.
It's a long time for your lifetime.
How was your boy now?
24.
Is he,
Yeah.
is he allowed back to her?
Yes.
Have you talked to him?
They wouldn't let me.
So he doesn't know?
I asked for it. No, he doesn't. We'll see. You know, when he was a kid, he's downstairs here. That was when we had our first problems. And she's upstairs with that gun, very uncomfortable. So I told her, I said, that's not going to work out. She had a fucking gun in her hand. She put it up to her head. She freaked me the fuck out. And I thought, for sure, here we go. And dropped the gun and fucking shot through the floor. I shot through the floor and hit the tile by the wood stove. So I repaired some things downstairs and I took the fucking gun away.
Same gun?
Same gun. And you know, the upstairs there's a carpet that, you know, you can see. I didn't repair that, which we're there drywall downstairs. Still fucking whole, probably half the floor. Well, of course it is. And then another time, and after that time, I don't know what to say. Well, second time. Same thing, she took it out, threatened to shoot herself. No. Yeah, 3 years ago. Goddamn, I don't even remember that. I really don't remember now. And I locked that fucker up and asked her to get help. She said she was.
When she had
I
the,
never time to leave that.
when she had the gun before it was locked up, where'd she keep it at?
She had it in her nightstand for a while. I think, I mean, I encouraged her to keep it in her purse. You know, she commutes to work and shit.
For her protection, sure. So what time did you get home today? Was it dark? Was it light?
No, it was afternoon. Late afternoon.
And was she home or?
4:30 or something. No, she didn't get off till 4:30 or something. She texted me she'd get her nails done. And I asked, what time was that? What have we done? So we did that. So it's been not for a good day. Well, she thinks she's going to think I'm having it with her. This is a she. What was she saying there? Huh? What was she saying there? Oh, I'm going to tell you where, you're going to tell you to go on. Anyway, let's see. I'm getting my nails done after. I'm sure she went to put work there. It's about 4 o'clock. 3:52.
What did you say you were doing now? If you didn't have anything?
Well, I had to work 2 extra days over on the stage. I normally would go on Tuesday and go on Thursday. And she accused me of taking 2 days somewhere.
What you said?
Just,
Do you mind following? I mean, I'm going to say.
we're just talking about, I'm just trying to encourage her to look forward and stop looking back. Let's see here. called me. And then she called me. And what was I trying to talk to her about that? Oh, it was one more time she'd be home, so we finished the paper. And I asked her to fix some stuff out down there. She's just leaving Spokane Valley at 6:09. And I said, okay, thanks. She probably got here about 7:30.
Go back to the part though, about her talking to you, usually.
Okay. She stayed at a girl's place there for 4 weeks ago. Oh, my sister.
Do you mind showing it to me? When was that? She sometimes that today?
3:52. She accused me of lying.
Where did that come from? Was there something missing there?
No, she's
She's talking about.
She just wait what she looked at text, okay?
And then all of a sudden.
Yeah. So I've been dealing with this roller coaster emotional thing.
So are you?
I wish I know this is bad.
So here. Were you thinking that she was doing something here?
What? She's
So
not
you guys are talking about it here.
Yeah.
So this is all today?
Should be. Oh, no shit. And then, having her brother with me didn't help her. She just accused him of being a trickster. I'll tell you what, so she's getting her nails done, and she's stopped. I don't know what Billy she's doing. And then she did.
So she's doing out your name for her up there.
Yeah. I was working too. Shit days. Okay.
So you guys are kind of having an emotional day here as well,
Emotional.
even when you're separated.
Oh, she won't stop texting. Maybe there's sometimes I text her too, but I mean, what's this one? Yeah, I've been trying to encourage her, and she has a house inspection and came in at her house. Oh, this is a few years ago when I told you about the gun incident. She's referring there. Well, I asked her to get help, and maybe there's some medication to help her out. That wasn't meant to tell her she's nuts. And then she accused me of telling her that she's nuts. It's not. Some people need it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, and then, I tell her, hey, it's never too late. I'm a better man now. Because, emotionally, I guess I wasn't that supportive. But, I mean, I'm just kind of a matter of fact. So I just, anyway, yeah, that's what I'm doing.
Do you have access to her phone? Do you ever go through her phone?
I don't know the code. I'm assuming she has a code. No, I don't even. Okay.
Well, some couples share and some keep on their privacy and.
Yeah, we don't. No. But, that's her. Yeah. So I'm just trying to encourage her. She's back and forth, okay, on stuff. I woke up one morning was a relief knowing, okay, if I need these papers, I don't have to deal with it.
What do you mean, so she says, oh, I want to move this job into my house down there.
So I bring up the fucking house and split everything, right?
But that's part of her escape plan, if she wants to escape, right?
Sure. I mean, that's where she wants to start her with. That's fine.
Is there stuff missing from her? I mean, that's confusing, because so she's talking about...
This is the way she talks, okay?
So she's talking about, I want to move this job into my house, I've been wanting that.
Okay,
so you say, fuck what they think.
Sorry, but just go back. Yeah. So,
I went this far. Is she talking about the house?
I think she's talking about what other people are thinking, because she got the house. She went and put Ernest money in a house while I was up on the slope down there. Texted me what she was going to go see an attorney. She saw the attorney a day before I got in, and then she got those papers. And I tried to talk her out of it. Let's talk first. Well, she didn't. And so, since I've been here, we've been just going back and forth. You want to make it work? Okay, I'll encourage you to make it work. If you don't want to make it work, I'm encouraging you to still make it work. I couldn't see 7 years away. But then, you know, I'm the one that filled out the papers, and I'll give her what she wants. That's what she wants. And then she will do everything 50-50, okay. That includes the flipping house down there. Which
So you're, I mean, obviously you're wanting to make things work here, and she's...
I'm trying to encourage her.
She's talking about not hearing me, I want the house to change.
Okay.
I thought, well, it breaks my heart, I'm hurting you.
And then she'll come back, and I'm not sure about the divorce. I love that.
What was she talking about the hotel? What did you think you liked about the hotel?
Oh, she think I stayed 2 days ago at the motel or something. But I was working. This is like the night before she's telling me, or 2 nights before she's telling me, you know, we can change and make it better, so.